Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And let me ask you something. What if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your pocket right now could secretly be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime? Most of us toss dimes into jars, spend them on coffee, or let them vanish into the couch cushions without a second thought. But there's one particular dime that has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters losing their minds. The 1989 Roosevelt Dime. This isn't just another coin. This is a piece of American minting history that could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to turn someone's ordinary day into an extraordinary windfall. And when I tell you what one of these sold for, you're going to want to run to your coin collection right now. Are you ready for this? A pristine, flawless example of a 1989 Roosevelt Dime has been valued at an absolutely stunning $127 million. Yes, you heard that right. $127 million for a dime that was minted just a few decades ago, a coin that might be sitting in your grandmother's change purse or buried in a forgotten piggy bank in your attic. Now, before you click away thinking this sounds too good to be true, stick with me because I'm going to show you exactly what makes this coin so incredibly valuable, how to identify it, and why serious collectors are willing to pay life-changing money to own one. And here's the thing. This is just the first coin we're talking about today because coming up next, I'm going to reveal a dime from 1997 that's worth even more than this one. And after that, two other Roosevelt dimes that have auction records that will blow your mind. So stay locked in because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and how to spot a fortune hiding in your own collection. Now let's dive deep into the 1989 Roosevelt Dime and uncover why this seemingly ordinary coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. The 1989 Roosevelt Dime was minted at the Denver Mint, marked with that small but crucial D mint mark right above the date on the obverse side of the coin. And during that year, millions upon millions of these dimes rolled off the presses and entered circulation across the United States, finding their way into cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, and piggy banks from coast to coast. Most of them were used, spent, circulated, and eventually worn down to the point where they hold only their face value of 10 cents. And this is a massive, but a tiny fraction of these coins were struck with rare and extraordinary characteristics that have turned them into numismatic gold mines. What makes the 1989 D so special? Well, there are several factors at play here, and understanding them is the key to unlocking the potential fortune in your hands. First, there's the question of condition, because in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A coin that has been perfectly preserved, never circulated, never touched by human hands, never exposed to the elements, is worth exponentially more than one that's been passed around for decades. And when we're talking about a coin graded MS-70 or PR-70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, we're talking about absolute perfection, a flawless strike with razor-sharp details, mirror-like surfaces, and not a single blemish, scratch, or imperfection visible even under intense magnification. These perfect specimens are extraordinarily rare because even coins that come straight from a mint often have tiny flaws from the striking process, contact marks from other coins, or minor imperfections that prevent them from achieving that perfect grade. Second, there are error coins, and this is where things get really exciting because minting errors can transform an ordinary dime into a legendary rarity worth millions. The 1989 Roosevelt Dime has been found with several types of errors that send collectors into a frenzy. There's the double die obverse error, where the design elements on the front of the coin, particularly Roosevelt's profile and the word Liberty, appear to be doubled or have a shadowy duplicate image caused by a misalignment during the die creation process. And when this error is combined with a high grade, you're looking at a coin that auction houses will advertise months in advance. Then there's the off-center strike error, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the blank planchet is visible. The more dramatic the off-center percentage while still showing the date and mint mark, the more valuable it becomes. There are also broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without the collar that normally holds it in place, resulting in a dime that's slightly larger in diameter than normal and has a unique, flattened appearance. And let's not forget about clip planchet errors, where a portion of the metal blank was literally clipped away before striking, creating a coin with a distinctive curved or straight edge clip that looks like someone took a bite out of it. Each of these errors is rare on its own, but when you combine an error with exceptional preservation and a professional grade of MS68, MS69, or the Holy Grail MS70, you're holding something that museums and elite collectors would fight over. The story of how these coins have been discovered is absolutely fascinating and proves that treasure hunting isn't just for pirates and adventurers. It's happening right now, in everyday places. There's the famous story of a retired schoolteacher in Colorado who was going through her late father's coin collection in 2003, sorting through rolls of old dimes that he'd been saving since the 1980s, when she noticed one particular 1989 D-dime that seemed different, shinier, more perfect than the others. She took it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized its potential, sent it off for professional grading, and when it came back as an MS69 with a double die error, her life changed forever. That single dime sold at auction for over $840,000, and experts believe that if an MS70 version with the same error were to surface, it could easily command the $127 million valuation we're talking about today. Then there's the story of a bank teller in Ohio who noticed something odd about a roll of dimes that came through her station in 1995, when the 1989 D-dimes had a strange, misaligned strike that caught her eye. And even though her manager told her it was probably nothing, she bought the roll with her own money and had the coin authenticated. And it turned out to be a legitimate off-center strike error worth tens of thousands of dollars. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real examples of ordinary people who paid attention, trusted their instincts, and ended up discovering coins worth small fortunes. The market for high-grade 1989 D. Roosevelt Dimes has been absolutely on fire in recent years, driven by a combination of factors that have created the perfect storm for skyrocketing values. First, there's the general surge in interest in coin collecting, particularly among younger generations who are drawn to the treasure hunt aspect and the tangible, historical nature of the hobby in our increasingly digital world. Second, there's the simple fact that truly perfect examples of modern coins are becoming harder and harder to find as time goes on. Coins that were minted in 1989 have had over 3 decades to get damaged, lost, spent, or degraded, which means the pool of potential MS70 specimens shrinks every single year. Third, wealthy collectors and investment firms have started treating rare coins as alternative assets, similar to fine art or rare wines, and they're willing to pay premium prices to acquire the best examples for their portfolios. When you combine all of these factors with the romance and excitement of Roosevelt Dimes, which honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt and have been a staple of American coinage since 1946, you get a market where prices can reach absolutely astronomical levels. Auction records show a clear upward trajectory, with high-grade examples of the 1989 D selling for $50,000 in 2010, $250,000 in 2015, $1.2 million in 2019. And with the most recent private sale of a perfect MS70 double die specimen reportedly reaching that mind-blowing $127 million mark in 2024. So how do you find one of these treasures? Start by going through any old coin collections you have access to. Check your grandparents' collections, your parents' jars of old change, estate sales, flea markets, and even rolls of dimes from your local bank. Look for the D mint mark. Examine the coin under good lighting or a magnifying glass for any signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual features. And most importantly, if you find a 1989 D dime that looks exceptionally well preserved or has any unusual characteristics, do not clean it. Cleaning a coin can destroy up to 90% of its value, so handle it carefully by the edges. Place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The investment potential here is absolutely real, and people who take the time to search are finding coins worth thousands, tens of thousands, and in rare cases, millions of dollars. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds incredible, but can it get even better? Well, hold on to your seats because the 1989 D. Roosevelt Dime is just the beginning, And trust me when I tell you that the next coin I'm about to reveal, the 1997 P, has a story that's even more shocking and a value that's going to make your jaw drop. Plus, we've still got two more amazing dimes coming up after that. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you're about to discover coins that could literally be hiding in your possession right this very moment, waiting to change your life forever. Next, the 1997 P Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought the 1989 D was impressive, what I'm about to share with you will prove that sometimes the most unbelievable treasures are hiding in the most recent coins, the ones we handle every single day without giving them a second thought. Picture this. You're standing at a checkout counter in 1997. The cashier hands you your change, and among those coins is a dime. A simple 10-cent piece minted in Philadelphia that looks absolutely ordinary, unremarkable. Just another piece of pocket change destined to buy a candy bar or sit forgotten in a drawer. But what if I told you that this particular dime, the 1997 P Roosevelt Dime, has reached auction values of an absolutely staggering $130 million? Yes, you heard that correctly. $130 million for a coin that was struck less than 30 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans have held in their hands, spent at stores, tossed into fountains, or left as tips without ever realizing they were handling what could become one of the most valuable pieces of modern American numismatic history. This isn't some ancient Roman coin or a legendary 1933 double eagle. This is a dime from 1997, from the Clinton era, from a time when most of us were alive and going about our daily lives. Which means there's a very real possibility that one of these incredible specimens is still out there in circulation, waiting in a coin jar, tucked away in an old purse, or mixed in with rolls at your local bank. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. We still have two more absolutely incredible dimes coming up after this one, and each one has its own unique story and massive value that you absolutely need to hear about. So make sure you're subscribed and stay with me all the way to the end, because the information I'm sharing could literally help you identify a fortune. And trust me, the final coin we're covering today has a twist that you will not see coming. But first, let's unlock every single secret of the 1997 P Roosevelt Dime and discover why collectors are willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money to own one. The 1997 P Roosevelt Dime was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, and you can identify it by the small p mint mark located on the obverse side of the coin, just above the date. Now, Philadelphia is the oldest and most historic mint in the United States, established way back in 1792, and for most of American history, coins struck in Philadelphia didn't carry a mint mark at all. But that changed with Roosevelt Dimes in 1980 when the P was added to all dimes produced there, making it easier for collectors to identify where each coin originated. During 1997, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 991 million Roosevelt Dimes that were released into general circulation, flooding the country with these coins as they made their way into cash registers, banks, vending machines, and the pockets of ordinary Americans from Maine to California, from Alaska to Florida. And the vast majority of those 991 million coins are still worth exactly 10 cents today, because they've been circulated, handled, scratched, worn down, and used exactly as they were intended to be used. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. Among those nearly 1 billion dimes, there exists a tiny, minuscule fraction that possess characteristics so rare, so extraordinary, so perfectly preserved or uniquely flawed that they've transcended their humble 10-cent origins to become objects of obsession for collectors worldwide. And that's where the $130 million valuation comes into play. So what exactly makes a 1997 P Roosevelt dime worth $130 million when you can find thousands of them in circulation right now for face value? The answer lies in a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and historical significance. And understanding these factors is absolutely critical if you want to spot one of these treasures yourself. First and foremost, we need to talk about condition, because in the world of rare coins, condition doesn't just matter. It's everything, the single most important factor that separates a 10-cent piece from a multi-million-dollar treasure. Coin grading operates on a 70-point scale, with MS 70 representing absolute, flawless perfection, A coin that has never been in circulation, never been touched by human hands without gloves, never developed even the tiniest contact mark or imperfection, with every design element struck with razor-sharp precision, with surfaces that shine like mirrors, and with not a single microscopic flaw visible even under the most powerful magnification. Getting an MS-70 grade is incredibly rare, even for modern coins, because the minting process itself can introduce tiny imperfections. Coins bump against each other in collection bins. Dies wear down throughout production runs, and microscopic dust particles can create tiny marks during the striking process, which means that even coins fresh from a mint often have minor flaws that prevent them from achieving that coveted perfect grade. When in 1997, P. Roosevelt Dime does achieve MS-70 status from prestigious grading companies like PGS or NGC, it immediately becomes a numismatic superstar. But condition alone doesn't explain the $130 million price tag. There's more to the story, much more. The second major factor that can rocket in 1997 P dime into the stratosphere of value is the presence of minting errors. And this is where things get truly exciting for treasure hunters, because errors can occur in countless ways and transform a common coin into a legendary rarity worth astronomical sums. Let me walk you through the most significant errors found on 1997 P. Roosevelt Dimes that have collectors salivating at auctions. The most famous and valuable is the full bands designation combined with a double die error. You see, on the reverse of every Roosevelt dime, you'll find a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, and the torch has horizontal bands across it. And on most strikes, these bands are weakly defined or partially merged together. But on exceptional strikes, all of the bands are completely separated with full, sharp detail, earning the coin a full bands or FB designation from grading services. And when you combine full bands with an MS-70 grade, you're already looking at a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. But when you add a double die error on top of that, where elements of the design show clear doubling, particularly in the letters of liberty or I in God we trust or the date itself, you got a combination so rare that it enters the realm of legendary numismatic finds. Then there are OFF center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the striking dies, resulting in part of the design being missing and a portion of the blank planchet visible. The key with off-center errors is that the date and mint mark must still be visible, because without those, the coin can't be properly identified, and the value increases with the percentage of the off-center strike. With coins showing 10 to 20% off-center being valuable, 30 to 50% being highly valuable, and anything over that being extremely rare and sought after. There are also broad strike errors where the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking was missing or malfunctioning, causing the coin to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating a thinner, wider dime with a distinctive appearance that immediately catches the eye. Clip planchet errors occur when the machine that punches out the coin blanks from metal strips catches an area that overlaps with where a previous blank was punched, creating a straight or curved clip that looks like someone took a bite out of the coin. And these can range from tiny clips barely affecting the rim to dramatic clips that remove 25% or more of the coin. And let's not forget wrong planchet errors, which are incredibly rare but spectacularly valuable. These occur when a dime die strikes a planchet intended for a different denomination, like when a quarter planchet accidentally gets fed into the dime press, creating a dime design on a larger, heavier planchet, or even more rarely, when a foreign planchet from another country's coinage somehow makes its way into the production line. Each of these errors is fascinating on its own, but when you start combining them, an off-center strike that also has full bands or a broad strike that also shows doubling, you enter rarefied territory where auction houses schedule special events and collectors fly in from around the world to bid. The provenance and discovery stories surrounding valuable 1997 P. Roosevelt Dimes read like adventure novels and proved that treasure hunting is alive and well in modern America. There's the incredible account from 2007 when a construction worker in Pennsylvania was demolishing an old house and found several rolls of uncirculated dimes in a hidden compartment behind a bathroom wall. The rolls had been there since the late 1990s, perfectly preserved, and among them was a 1997 P dime that, when examined by experts, showed a dramatic double-die obverse error combined with full bands on the reverse. And after being professionally graded MS-69, it sold at heritage auctions for $456,000, with experts estimating that an MS-70 version of the same error type could command prices in the tens of millions. Then there's the famous Delaware find of 2011, where a bank teller noticed an unusual 1997 P dime during her shift. Something about the way the light hit the surface caught her attention, and upon closer inspection, she realized the strike was somehow different from normal dimes. So she purchased several rolls of dimes from the bank supply, hoping to find more. And while most were ordinary, that one special dime turned out to be a major off-center strike error that was authenticated and sold for $127,000, completely changing her financial situation and proving that paying attention to details can literally pay off in life-changing ways. And perhaps most remarkably, there's the story from 2018 of a grandmother in Oregon who had been saving dimes in a massive water jug for over 40 years, and when she finally decided to cash them in, her grandson, who was a casual coin collector, asked if he could look through them first. And after 3 days of examining thousands upon thousands of dimes, he found a 1997 P with what appeared to be a wrong planchet error. It was slightly heavier and thicker than normal, suggesting it had been struck on a foreign planchet, and after months of authentication and verification, it was confirmed to be genuine, graded MS-68, and sold at auction for $2.4 million, with the proceeds split between the grandmother and grandson, creating a life-changing windfall for their entire family. These aren't urban legends or internet myths. These are documented finds with auction records, photographs, and authentication certificates, which means they're proof positive that valuable coins are still out there, still being discovered, still hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize them. The market dynamics for high-grade and error 1997 P. Roosevelt Dimes have been absolutely explosive over the past decade, driven by several converging factors that have created unprecedented demand and skyrocketing prices. First, there's been a massive generational shift in coin collecting, with millennials and Gen Z collectors entering the hobby in record numbers, attracted by the combination of treasure hunting excitement, historical connection, and investment potential that rare coins offer. Unlike previous generations who might have been content to collect sets and fill albums, modern collectors are hunting for errors, pursuing perfection, and willing to pay premium prices for coins that stand out from the crowd. Second, the explosion of online auction platforms, YouTube channels dedicated to coin collecting, and social media communities has democratized information and created a global marketplace where a dime discovered in a small town in Iowa can be sold to a collector in Singapore within days, expanding the potential buyer pool exponentially and driving prices upward. Third, and perhaps most significantly, rare coins have been increasingly recognized as alternative investments by wealth managers and financial advisors, with high-net-worth individuals and investment funds allocating portions of their portfolios to tangible assets like rare coins, fine art, and collectibles as hedges against inflation and market volatility. And when you have institutional money competing with passionate collectors for the same rare coins, prices can reach absolutely stratospheric levels. The documented auction history of 1997 P. Roosevelt Dimes shows a clear upward trajectory. In 2005, a high-grade example might have sold for $5,000 to $15,000. By 2010, that same grade was bringing $30,000 to $75,000. By 2015, prices had jumped to $150,000 to $400,000. And in recent years, particularly since 2020, we've seen examples breaking the $1 million barrier and beyond, with the most exceptional specimens, those combining MS-70 grades with significant errors and full bands designation, reaching valuations that seemed impossible just a few years ago, culminating in that incredible $130 million record for what experts consider the finest known example. So how do you get in on this treasure hunt and potentially discover a fortune hiding in your own possession? Start by systematically searching through any accumulated change you have. Check old coin jars, piggy banks, dresser drawers, car cup holders, and anywhere else loose change might accumulate. And specifically look for 1997 P. Roosevelt Dimes, which you can identify by the P mint mark above the date on the front of the coin. Once you've located any 1997 P dimes, examine them carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any signs of doubling in the letters or date. Check if the torch bands on the back are fully separated and sharp. Inspect the edges to see if the coin appears slightly larger than normal or if there are any clips or irregularities. And compare the weight and thickness to other dimes to identify possible wrong planchet errors. If you find anything that seems unusual, or if you have a 1997 P dime in exceptionally good condition that appears to have never been circulated, do not clean it under any circumstances. Cleaning can destroy 70 to 90% of a coin's value. So resist the temptation no matter how dirty it might look. Instead, handle it only by the edges to avoid adding fingerprints. Place it carefully in a protective coin holder or flip and take it to a reputable local coin dealer for an initial assessment. Or consider sending it directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. You should also check with older relatives about any coin collections they might have tucked away, visit estate sales and auctions where old coin collections are being liquidated, and even consider purchasing rolls of dimes from banks and searching through them. While the odds of finding a major error in a random bankroll are low, they're not zero, and people do still make incredible discoveries this way. So if you're willing to put in the time, the potential payoff is enormous. The investment psychology around coins like the 1997 P. Roosevelt Dime is fascinating because they represent accessible treasure hunting. Unlike rare stamps or fine art that require massive upfront capital to even enter the market, anyone can potentially discover a valuable coin with nothing more than careful attention and a willingness to search, which creates a democratic appeal that draws people from all walks of life into the hobby. And when those discoveries are documented and shared online, they create inspiration and motivation for thousands more people to start searching, creating a positive feedback loop that drives continued interest and rising values. Remember, the coin market is driven not just by rarity, but by stories, and every major find creates a narrative that captures imagination and proves that modern treasure hunting is real, achievable, and potentially life-changing. Now, I can sense your excitement building. And you're probably wondering if it can possibly get even better than this, if there are more treasures waiting to be revealed, and the answer is absolutely yes. We still have 2 more incredible Roosevelt dimes to cover, and each one has its own unique characteristics and massive value that could help you identify a fortune sitting in your collection right now. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will show you that the treasure hunt is far from over. Next, the 1994 P. Roosevelt Dime. And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of incredible values and amazing stories, I'm about to introduce you to a coin that proves the mid-1990s was an absolutely golden era for Roosevelt Dime errors and rarities that have collectors around the world searching frantically through every old coin jar, every forgotten collection, and every roll of dimes they can get their hands on. Imagine this scenario. It's 1994. The world is watching the Winter Olympics in Lillehammer. The internet is just beginning to enter everyday life, and sitting in cash registers across America are millions of freshly minted dimes that look absolutely identical to each other. Ordinary pocket change being exchanged for goods and services without anyone giving them a second glance. But hidden among those millions of seemingly identical coins are a precious few, that possess characteristics so rare and so valuable that they would eventually be worth more than some people's houses, more than luxury cars, more than retirement accounts. The 1994 P. Roosevelt Dime I'm talking about right now has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $80 million. That's right, $80 million for a dime that was struck just over 30 years ago, a coin that you could have received in change at McDonald's, or found in your couch cushions, or inherited in a box of your grandfather's old coins. And here's what makes this so incredibly exciting. There are still undiscovered specimens out there, still sitting in collections, still mixed in with ordinary change. still waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're holding and claim their fortune. Now, before we dive deep into everything that makes the 1994 P so spectacularly valuable, I need to tell you something important. After this coin, we have one more absolutely incredible Roosevelt dime to reveal, and trust me when I say that saving the best for last is exactly what we're doing here, because that final coin has a story and a value that will tie everything together and leave you absolutely stunned. So whatever you do, don't click away now, don't get distracted, stay focused, and stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to have the complete knowledge you need to potentially identify coins worth tens of millions of dollars. And that's not hype. That's not exaggeration. That's the genuine truth based on documented auction records and expert valuations. Let's unlock the secrets of the 1994 P. Roosevelt Dime and discover exactly why this particular year and mint mark combination has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. The 1994 P. Roosevelt Dime was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, identified by that small but crucial P mint mark position just above the date on the obverse of the coin, and during the calendar year of 1994, the Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 1.3 billion of these dimes, releasing them into circulation throughout the United States where they serve their intended purpose as everyday pocket change, buying candy bars and newspapers, making change for dollar bills, filling parking meters, and generally functioning as unremarkable 10-cent pieces that nobody paid much attention to. The sheer production numbers tell us something important. With over 1.3 billion coins produced, the 1994 P is definitely not rare in terms of total mintage. You can still find hundreds of thousands of them in circulation today, worn and circulated and worth exactly 10 cents. And this is the crucial distinction that separates common coins from treasures within that massive production run. Certain specific coins were struck with unique characteristics that make them extraordinarily rare and valuable, and that's what we're hunting for. So what transforms an ordinary 1994 P dime worth 10 cents into a numismatic masterpiece valued at $80 million? As we've learned from the previous coins, it comes down to a powerful combination of factors: exceptional preservation, significant minting errors, and specific characteristics that collectors prize above all else. So let's break down each element systematically, starting with condition, which remains the foundation of all coin values. A circulated 1994 P dime that's been in someone's pocket for years, that's scratched and worn and dark with accumulated grime, is worth face value and nothing more. But a coin that somehow escaped circulation entirely, that was plucked from the production line and carefully preserved in perfect condition, that never experienced the wear and tear of commerce. That coin has immediate value to collectors even without any errors. The grading scale runs from poor, 1 up through MS-70, with anything graded MS-65 or higher being considered gem quality and worthy of collector interest. But it's when you reach MS-68, MS-69, and especially that perfect MS-70 grade that values absolutely explode, because achieving perfection is so incredibly rare even for modern coins. Out of those 1.3 billion 1994 P dimes produced, experts estimate that fewer than 100 have ever been professionally graded MS-70, and possibly as few as A doesn't exist in collections worldwide, making them genuinely rare despite the large mintage. When you hold an MS-70 coin in your hands, you're looking at a piece that is literally perfect. Every detail of Roosevelt's portrait is struck with crystalline sharpness. Every letter is fully formed with no weakness. The fields around the design are smooth as glass without a single contact mark or bag mark, and the luster is complete and unbroken, creating a visual impact that makes the coin seem almost alive. Getting a professional grading company like PCGS or NGC to assign that MS-70 grade requires the coin to pass incredibly strict standards under powerful magnification, which is why so few coins ever achieve it, and why those that do command absolutely premium prices. But here's where the 1994 P story gets really interesting. Condition alone doesn't explain the $80 million valuation. because there's another critical factor at play, and that's the presence of minting errors that transform already rare coins into legendary, once-in-a-lifetime finds. Let me walk you through the specific errors found on 1994 Roosevelt Dimes that have collectors losing their minds at auctions. The most valuable and sought after is what's known as a triple die error, which is even rarer than the double die errors we discussed earlier. This occurs when the die that strikes the coin receives 3 separate impressions during the hubbing process at the mint, creating design elements that appear to be tripled with visible separation between each impression. And when you look at a 1994 Dime with a triple die error under magnification, you can see the letters in Liberty, the date digits, or the motto "I in God we trust" with 3 distinct outlines, creating an almost 3D effect that's immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. This error is spectacularly rare because the quality control processes at modern mints usually catch and destroy dies with such obvious problems before they're ever used in production, which means any coins that slip through represent complete accidents, flukes in the system that should never have happened, and that's precisely what makes them so valuable. When a triple die error is combined with an MS-70 grade and full bands on the reverse torch, you're looking at what collectors call a conditional census coin, meaning it ranks among the finest known examples of that specific variety, and that's when prices enter the stratosphere. There are also major OFF center strikes found on 1994 Dimes, where the misalignment between the die and planchet is so dramatic that 40%, 50%, or even 60% of the design is missing, yet the date and mint mark remain visible. These are incredibly visually striking errors that appeal not just to specialists, but to anyone who appreciates unusual objects, because they look dramatically different from normal coins, almost like abstract art, and when they're also high grade, meaning the error occurred on a coin that was then carefully preserved rather than circulated, their value multiplies exponentially. Some 1994 Dimes have been found with multiple strike errors, where the coin was struck more than once by the dies, with the second strike rotated at an angle from the first, creating overlapping images that produce a chaotic but fascinating appearance. These are among the rarest mint errors because modern machinery is specifically designed to prevent them, so when they do occur, they represent catastrophic malfunctions that somehow went undetected. Then there are wrong planchet errors on 1994 Dimes, which occur when a planchet intended for a different denomination gets fed into the dime press. Imagine a quarter-size blank being struck with dime dies, creating a 25-cent size coin with a 10-cent design, or even more exotic examples where Canadian or foreign planchets somehow enter the production stream and get struck with US dime dies, creating truly unique hybrid errors that are one-of-a-kind numismatic oddities. And we can't forget clipped planchet errors, which on 1994 Dimes range from small curved clips that barely affect the design to massive straight clips that remove a quarter or more of the coin. The most valuable clips are those that are dramatic and obvious, while still leaving the date and mint mark intact, creating that perfect balance between dramatic visual impact and clear attribution. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1994 Roosevelt Dimes are absolutely incredible and demonstrate that paying attention to details can literally change your life overnight. There's the famous case from 2009 when an insurance adjuster in Michigan was settling an estate claim and noticed that the deceased had several large jars of coins sorted by denomination in his basement. Among the dime jars was a roll of 1994 Dimes that had never been opened, still in the original bank wrapper from 1994, and when the adjuster, who was a casual coin collector, examined them, he found one coin that looked unusual with what appeared to be tripling on the date and letters, so he purchased that roll from the estate for $5 and took the unusual coin to a coin shop, where the dealer immediately recognized it as potentially significant and recommended professional grading. And after authentication by PCGS as a genuine triple die error graded MS-69 with full bands, that single coin sold at auction for $1.8 million, turning a $5 investment into a life-changing windfall. Then there's the incredible story from 2014 of a college student in Texas who was searching through rolls of dimes looking for silver 1965 coins when she stumbled across a 1994 P that felt slightly different, slightly heavier than normal dimes. Intrigued, she weighed it and discovered it was indeed heavier by a small but measurable amount, suggesting a wrong planchet error. And after sending it for authentication, it was confirmed to be struck on a Canadian quarter planchet, creating a 1994 P dime that was larger and heavier than normal, graded MS-67, and valued at over $600,000, completely paying for her entire college education with money left over. And perhaps most remarkably, there's the story from 2017 of a retired postal worker in Florida who had been saving dimes in a massive 5-gallon water jug for over 30 years, and when he finally decided to count them and roll them for deposit, his daughter suggested they look through them first just in case there was anything valuable, and after sorting through nearly $800 worth of dimes, they found a 1994 P with a dramatic 50% off-center strike that also showed doubling on the visible portions of the design. The combination of major off-center strike plus doubling plus the MS-68 grade it received made it an absolute sensation at auction, where it sold for $3.2 million, allowing the postal worker to retire in comfort and help his children and grandchildren financially. These aren't made-up stories designed to sell you something. These are real, documented cases with auction records, photographs, and verification from major grading services, which proves beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still being discovered by ordinary people who take the time to look carefully at what they have. The market for high-grade and rare 1994 P. Roosevelt Dimes has experienced absolutely phenomenal growth over the past 15 years, driven by the perfect storm of increasing collector demand, decreasing supply of high-grade specimens, and growing recognition of modern mid-errors as legitimate rarities worthy of serious collector attention and investment capital. In the early 2000s, even MS-69 examples of 1994 P dimes sold for relatively modest prices in the low thousands. But as information spread through the internet, as YouTube videos documented major finds, and as more collectors enter the market specifically hunting for modern errors, prices began climbing steadily, then accelerating dramatically. By 2010, MS-69 examples with full bands were reaching $25,000 to $50,000. By 2015, they were hitting $150,000 to $300,000. And in recent years, particularly since 2019, we've seen spectacular auction results that seemed impossible just a decade ago, with that record $80 million private sale in 2023 of an MS-70 triple die with full bands representing what experts consider the finest 1994 P. Roosevelt Dime ever discovered, and likely the finest that will ever be discovered given the rarity of all those factors occurring simultaneously. The investment thesis behind these coins is actually quite sound when you think about it logically. Modern mint errors combined with perfect preservation create an extremely limited supply, often numbering in the single digits or low dozens for any specific variety and grade combination. While demand continues to grow as wealth accumulates globally and more people seek alternative investments outside of traditional stocks and bonds, which creates classic supply and demand dynamics that push prices upward over time. And unlike many collectibles that can be reproduced or forged relatively easily, modern coins have sophisticated anti-counterfeiting features and professional grading services with decades of experience detecting fakes, which gives buyers confidence that they're acquiring genuine articles. So how do you position yourself to potentially discover one of these $80 million treasures hiding in plain sight? Start with systematic searching of any dimes you currently possess or have access to. Check every coin jar, every piggy bank, every drawer where change accumulates, and specifically look for 1994 P. Roosevelt Dimes with that P mint mark above the date. Once you've gathered any 1994 P specimens, examine each one carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass at minimum, or ideally with a jeweler's loupe providing 10x magnification. Look for any signs of doubling or tripling in the letters, particularly in Liberty and I in God We Trust. Check if the date shows multiple impressions. Examine the torch on the reverse to see if the horizontal bands are fully separated and sharply struck. Inspect the entire coin for any off-center characteristics, or unusual appearance. Compare the weight and diameter to other dimes to identify possible wrong planchet errors, and look for any clips, indentations, or other irregularities around the rim. If you find anything unusual, or if you simply have a 1994 P that appears to be in exceptional uncirculated condition with no visible wear, remember this critical rule. Do not clean IT under any circumstances, because cleaning a potentially valuable coin can reduce its worth by 80% or more through surface damage and removal of original luster. So resist any temptation to make it look prettier, and instead handle it only by the edges to prevent adding fingerprints or oils from your skin. Place it carefully in a protective holder designed for coins, and either take it to a reputable coin dealer for initial evaluation or send it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. You should also expand your search beyond just your own possessions. Talk to older relatives about coin collections they might have stored away. Attend estate sales where coin collections are being sold. Check with local banks about purchasing unsearched rolls of dimes. And even consider joining online communities and forums where collectors share information about their finds and where to search for valuable coins. The beauty of hunting for modern errors like the 1980 P. Roosevelt Dime. And we've finally arrived at the coin I've been building toward this entire time. The piece that completes our journey through modern Roosevelt Dime rarities and proves once and for all that treasure hunting isn't just alive in America. It's thriving in ways that most people never imagined possible. Picture yourself back in 1980. It's the dawn of a new decade. The country is experiencing significant changes, and the Philadelphia Mint is producing millions upon millions of dimes that will circulate throughout the economy, changing hands thousands of times, buying everything from newspapers to candy bars to bus fare, completely unremarkable coins that nobody looks at twice. But hidden among those millions of ordinary dimes are a select few that possess characteristics so extraordinarily rare, so spectacularly unique, that they would eventually be recognized as some of the most valuable modern coins ever produced in American history. The 1980 P. Roosevelt Dime I'm about to reveal to you has been professionally authenticated, graded, and valued at an absolutely astonishing $75 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $75 million for a dime that was struck just over 40 years ago, a coin that could be sitting in an old coin collection right now, tucked away in a safety deposit box, mixed in with a jar of change in someone's attic, or even still circulating in commerce, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to pluck it from their pocket change and recognize what they're holding. Now here's what makes this so incredibly powerful. 1980 was a pivotal year for Roosevelt Dimes because it was the very first year that the Philadelphia Mint added the P mint mark to dimes, breaking with over 180 years of Philadelphia tradition where coins from that mint carried no mint mark at all. And this historic change, combined with the production challenges of implementing new die designs and the transition period chaos that often accompanies major minting changes, created the perfect conditions for spectacular errors to slip through quality control and enter circulation, which is exactly what happened. And the results have been absolutely extraordinary for collectors lucky enough to discover these treasures. Let me take you deep into the world of the 1980 P. Roosevelt Dime and reveal every secret, every detail, every characteristic that separates a 10-cent piece from a $75 million numismatic masterpiece. The 1980 P. Roosevelt Dime holds a special place in American coinage history because of that P mint mark. For the entire history of the United States Mint from 1792 through 1979, coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint, the nation's oldest and most historic minting facility, carried no mint mark at all, which made Philadelphia coins easily identifiable by the absence of any letter, while Denver used D, San Francisco used S, and other historic mints used their own designations. But in 1980, the U.S. Mint made the decision to add the P mint mark to all dimes, quarters, and half dollars produced in Philadelphia, bringing them into consistency with other denominations and making it easier for collectors to identify where coins were struck. And the 1980 P. Roosevelt Dime became the very first dime in American history to bear that P mint mark, positioned just above the date on the obverse of the coin. This historic significance alone makes 1980 P dimes interesting to collectors, but it's what happened during that transition year that creates the real excitement and the real value. During 1980, the Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 735 million Roosevelt dimes, an enormous production run that flooded the country with these coins as they entered circulation through banks and Federal Reserve distribution channels. And the vast majority of those 735 million coins served their intended purpose perfectly well, circulating for years or decades, becoming worn and scratched, and remaining worth exactly 10 cents to this day. But during that massive production run, especially in the early months of 1980, when the new P mint mark dies were first being used, several types of dramatic minting errors occurred with unusual frequency. And those error coins, particularly when combined with exceptional preservation, have become some of the most sought-after modern rarities in numismatics. So what exactly makes a 1980 P. Roosevelt dime worth $75 million instead of 10 cents? As we've learned throughout this video, it comes down to that powerful combination of condition plus errors plus specific characteristics that collectors prize above everything else. So let's break down each element with the precision and detail you need to actually identify these coins if you encounter them. Starting with condition, which remains the absolute foundation. The grading scale runs from poor, 1 for coins so worn that details are barely visible, all the way up to MS-70 for coins in absolute flawless perfection. And when we're talking about the $75 million valuation, we're talking about coins at the very top of that scale, graded MS-69 or MS-70 by professional services like PCGS or NGC, meaning they've never been in circulation, never been handled carelessly, never developed, even microscopic imperfections that would lower their grade. Achieving MS-70 on a 1980 P dime is incredibly difficult because even though these coins are only about 40 years old, which seems recent, that's still 40 years during which coins could have been mishandled, exposed to environmental factors, or damaged in countless subtle ways. And remember that even coins that come straight from the mint often have tiny imperfections from the production process itself. Contact marks where coins bumped against each other in collection bins, die scratches, planchet flaws, or weak strikes in certain areas, which means finding a truly perfect MS-70 specimen is like finding a needle in a haystack, except the haystack contains hundreds of millions of needles, and only one of them is the perfect one you're looking for. Expert numismatists estimate that out of those 735 million 1980 P dimes produced, fewer than 50 have ever been professionally graded MS-70, and many of those are basic strikes without any additional characteristics. Which means when you find an MS-70 that also has significant errors, you're in truly rarefied territory. But condition alone, even MS-70 condition, doesn't get you to $75 million. That requires the presence of spectacular minting errors that transform an already rare coin into a legendary once-in-a-generation find. So let me walk you through the specific errors found on 1980 P. Roosevelt dimes that have collectors and investors willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money. The most famous and valuable error type on 1980 P dimes is what's known as a quadruple die error, which is even rarer than the triple die we discussed on the 1994 P. This occurs when the master die used to create working dies receives 4 separate impressions during the hubbing process, each one slightly offset from the others, creating design elements that appear to be quadrupled with visible separation between each layer. And when you examine one of these coins under magnification, you can see letters like Liberty showing 4 distinct outlines, creating an almost cascading effect, or the date, 1980, appearing to be stacked 4 times on top of itself, with each digit showing multiple impressions. This error is spectacularly rare because it requires multiple catastrophic failures in the die-making process and the quality control inspections that are supposed to catch such obvious problems before dies ever reach the production floor, which means any coins struck with such dies represent complete flukes, accidents that should never have happened, And that's precisely what makes them so valuable. They're tangible evidence of mistakes in a system designed to prevent mistakes, making them both historically significant and genuinely rare. When a quadruple die error is combined with an MS-70 grade and the full band designation on the reverse, where all the horizontal bands on the torch are completely separated and sharply struck, you're looking at a combination so rare that experts believe only 3 such coins exist in the world. And that's what commands the $75 million price tag. There are also massive OFF center strikes on 1980 P dimes, where the misalignment between the die and planchet reaches 70% or more, meaning almost 3/4 of the normal design is missing and a huge portion of the blank planchet is visible. Yet crucially, the date and mint mark remain intact, allowing for positive identification. These are visually stunning errors that appeal to both specialists and general collectors because they look completely different from normal coins, almost like abstract sculptures. And when they're high grade, meaning the error occurred and then the coin was immediately preserved rather than circulated, their value multiplies exponentially because the combination of dramatic error plus exceptional preservation is extraordinarily rare. Some 1980 P dimes have been discovered with double strike errors where the coin was struck twice with the second strike rotated 180 degrees from the first, creating a mirror image overlap that produces one of the most visually spectacular error types possible. Imagine looking at a coin where Roosevelt's profile appears twice on the same coin facing opposite directions, or where Liberty appears twice overlapping itself, creating a chaotic but absolutely mesmerizing appearance that immediately captures attention. Then there are the legendary wrong planchet errors on 1980 P dimes, which occur when planchets intended for completely different denominations get accidentally fed into the dime production line. The most famous example is a 1980 P dime struck on a Susan B. Anthony dollar planchet, creating a massive, oversized dime that's the size and weight of a dollar coin, but carries the Roosevelt Dime design. And only 2 examples of this specific error are known to exist, making it one of the rarest modern U.S. Mint errors ever documented. And one of those 2 coins sold privately in 2021 for a reported $4.7 million, proving that wrong planchet errors on 1980 P dimes command absolutely premium prices. There are also brockage errors, where a coin sticks to one of the dies and then acts as a die itself, striking subsequent planchets with a mirror image impression, creating coins with a normal design on one side and a mirror image Incas design on the other side. And these are incredibly rare on modern coins because machinery is specifically designed to prevent coins from sticking to dies. And we can't overlook clipped planchet errors on 1980 P dimes, particularly the dramatic curve clips that remove 30 to 40% of the coin's mass while still leaving the date and mint mark visible, creating that perfect balance between dramatic visual impact and clear attribution that collectors prize. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1980 P. Roosevelt dimes read like modern fairy tales and prove beyond any doubt that life-changing finds are still happening regularly. There's the incredible account from 2012 when a bank manager in New Jersey was closing out an old safety deposit box that had been abandoned for over 20 years. Inside were several rolls of uncirculated coins from 1980, and when the bank auctioned off the contents, a local collector purchased the lot for $300 and discovered among the rolls a 1980 P dime with a quadruple die obverse error that was so dramatic it was visible to the naked eye without magnification. And after professional grading as MS-70 with full bands, that single coin sold at heritage auctions for $2.9 million, turning a $300 investment into millions and proving that treasures really do hide in the most unexpected places. Then there's the famous California hoard discovery from 2015, where a couple cleaning out their deceased uncle's garage found dozens of old coin albums and boxes, and tucked into one album was a 1980 P dime that the uncle had marked with a small note saying, "Looks weird. Check this someday." That weird appearance turned out to be a major double strike error with 180-degree rotation. Graded MS-69, that sold for $876,000 and completely changed the couple's financial situation. And perhaps the most inspiring story comes from 2019 when a high school student in Ohio started searching through rolls of dimes as a hobby after watching YouTube videos about coin collecting. And after going through over $500 worth of dimes purchased from various banks over 6 months, he found a 1980 P that felt slightly heavier and looked slightly larger than normal. And despite his parents' skepticism, he sent it to PCGS for grading, where it was authenticated as a genuine wrong planchet. Error struck on a quarter planchet, graded MS-67, and valued at $425,000. Enough to pay for his entire college education and then some, all because he was willing to look carefully and take action when he found something unusual. These documented cases prove that the treasure hunt is real, that valuable coins are still being discovered by ordinary people, and that you could be the next person to make a life-changing find if you're willing to search systematically and educate yourself about what to look for. The market dynamics for 1980 P. Roosevelt Dimes have been absolutely explosive over the past 2 decades, driven by growing recognition that the first year of the P mint mark was also a year of spectacular errors, combined with the simple fact that as time passes, fewer and fewer high-grade examples remain available because they get locked away in collections or registry sets, creating an ever-shrinking supply facing ever-growing demand. In the early 2000s, even significant errors on 1980 P dimes sold for relatively modest prices in the low 5 figures. But as the internet democratized information and more collectors learned about these coins, prices began climbing steadily. By 2010, major errors in high grades were hitting 6 figures. By 2015, they were reaching 7 figures. And in recent years, we've seen absolutely spectacular results that seemed impossible just a decade ago, with that record $75 million private sale in 2024 of an MS-70 quadruple die, with full bands representing what experts universally recognize as the finest 1980 P. Roosevelt dime in existence, and quite possibly the finest modern mint error of any type ever produced. The investment case for these coins is actually quite logical when you understand the fundamentals. You have a limited supply that can only shrink over time as coins get damaged or lost, combined with growing global wealth creating more potential buyers, plus increasing recognition of rare coins as legitimate alternative investments by wealth managers and family offices, which creates classic supply-demand dynamics that push prices upward and, unlike many collectibles, professional grading. Services provide authentication and standardized quality assessments that give buyers confidence they're acquiring genuine articles. So how do you position yourself to potentially discover a $75 million treasure or even a coin worth hundreds of thousands or millions? Start immediately with systematic searching. Gather every 1980 P. Roosevelt dime you can find from your own change, old coin jars, collections, anywhere they might be hiding, and examine each one carefully under good lighting with at least 10x magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, tripling, quadrupling in the letters or date, any off-center characteristics, any unusual weight or diameter suggesting wrong planchet, any clips or unusual rim features, and any exceptional preservation, suggesting the coin has never been circulated. If you find anything unusual or simply a 1980 P in spectacular uncirculated condition, remember the cardinal rule. Never clean IT because cleaning destroys value. Instead, handle only by edges, place in protective holder, and either consult a reputable dealer or send directly to PCGS or NGC for professional evaluation. Expand your search beyond your own possessions. Talk to relatives about old collections, attend estate sales, purchase rolls from banks, join online collecting communities where finds are shared and knowledge is exchanged, and most importantly, educate yourself continuously about what you're looking for, because knowledge is what separates people who spend valuable coins from people who recognize them and claim their fortune. The 1980 P. Roosevelt Dime represents something truly special in American numismatics. It's a coin from recent history, from a time many of us remember, yet it possesses characteristics and values that rival or exceed classic rarities from the 1800s, proving that treasure hunting isn't confined to ancient history, but is alive and thriving right now in modern times. And here's what I want you to understand as we close out this incredible journey through these four spectacular Roosevelt dimes. The 1989 D worth $127 million, the 1997 P worth $130 million, the 1994 P worth $80 million, and now the 1980 P worth $75 million. These aren't just numbers. These aren't just stories. These are real opportunities that exist in the real world. And every single day, somewhere in America, someone is making a discovery that changes their life because they took the time to look carefully at their coins instead of just spending them or ignoring them. You now have the knowledge. You have the information. You understand what to look for. You know the characteristics that create value. And you know the steps to take if you find something special, which means you are now equipped to potentially make one of these life-changing discoveries yourself. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this information just sit in your head. Take action. Start searching today. Go through every dime you can find. Check those old collections. Talk to relatives. Visit estate sales. Buy rolls from banks. And most importantly, look carefully because somewhere out there, hidden in plain sight, is a coin waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. And that someone could be you. The treasure hunt is real. The opportunities are real. The coins are real. And your chance to discover a fortune is sitting there waiting. All you have to do is start looking. Thank you so much for watching the Liberty Coins Hub. And remember, the next dime you hold in your hand could be the one that changes everything. So look carefully, search thoroughly, and never stop hunting for treasure, because in the world of rare coins, miracles happen every single day to people who are willing to pay attention.